Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly manifest their desires while others struggle for years, repeating the same affirmations without seeing any real change? The answer lies not in what you're asking for, but in how you're asking, or rather, whether you should be asking at all. What if I told you that the very act of asking God for things is actually keeping you from receiving them? That every time you pray from a place of need, you're reinforcing the very lack you're trying to escape? This might sound counterintuitive, even shocking, but stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover could transform your entire approach to manifestation and spiritual practice. For centuries, humanity has been conditioned to approach the divine as beggars approaching a distant king. We've been taught to plead, to petition, to hope that if we're good enough, faithful enough, or persistent enough, maybe, just maybe, our prayers will be answered. But what if this entire approach is fundamentally flawed? What if the very foundation of traditional prayer is built on a misunderstanding so profound that it actually blocks the very blessings we seek? There's a secret that mystics throughout the ages have understood, but that mainstream religion has largely overlooked. It's the understanding that God is not out there somewhere, waiting to decide whether you deserve what you're asking for. The divine presence isn't separate from you. It is you. When you truly grasp this, everything changes. Your prayers transform from desperate pleas into powerful declarations. Your relationship with the divine shifts from servant and master to a recognition of your own divine nature. Has this ever happened to you? You've prayed earnestly for something, felt like you were doing everything right, yet the results seem to elude you. Or perhaps you've experienced those moments when everything seemed to flow effortlessly, when doors opened without you having to push them, when life felt like it was conspiring in your favor. The difference between these experiences isn't luck, timing, or divine favoritism. It's consciousness. The ancient teaching that I am is the name of God isn't just mystical poetry. It's a practical formula for creation itself. Every time you say, I am, you're invoking the creative power of the universe. Whatever you place after those words becomes the blueprint for your reality. Most people unknowingly use this power against themselves, declaring limitation after limitation without realizing they're programming their own experience. Your consciousness isn't just observing reality, it's creating it. Every belief you hold, every thought you sustain, every word you speak is actively shaping the world you experience. This isn't wishful thinking or New Age fantasy. It's a spiritual law as precise as any law of physics. When you understand that there's only one power in the universe, divine power, and that this power is expressing itself as you, through you, the whole game changes. But here's where most people get stuck. They try to use this knowledge to get things from God, rather than expressing what God already is through them. They attempt to manipulate spiritual laws for personal gain, rather than aligning themselves with the flow of divine expression. The result? Frustration, disappointment, and a growing sense that either the teachings don't work or they're somehow not worthy of divine favor. What you're about to learn goes far beyond manifestation techniques or positive thinking. This is about recognizing your true nature, about understanding that you're not a separate being trying to connect with God, but rather God expressing as you. When this shift occurs, manifestation becomes as natural as breathing, because you're no longer trying to attract what you lack. You're expressing what you already are. The journey we're about to embark on together will challenge everything you thought you knew about prayer, manifestation, and your relationship with the divine. Prepare to discover why asking God for what you want might be the very thing keeping you from having it, and what to do instead. Now, before we dive deeper into this transformative understanding, I want to pause for a moment and connect with you personally. As I speak these words, I can feel the energy of everyone watching, each of you on your own spiritual journey, each carrying your own experiences with prayer and manifestation. This isn't just content I'm sharing, it's a living conversation, and your voice matters deeply in this space. If this topic resonates with you so far, if something I've said has stirred something within you, or perhaps challenged a belief you've held for years, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Tell me what touched you the most. Was it the idea that asking might be keeping you from receiving? The concept that God is expressing as you rather than separate from you? Or perhaps you've had your own experiences that align with what we're discussing. Your stories and insights don't just enrich our community, they become part of the very fabric of these teachings. You see, when you share your experience in the comments, you're not just participating in a discussion, you're contributing to a collective awakening. Every comment becomes a testament to the power of these principles in action. Others who read your words might find exactly the encouragement or perspective they needed to hear. Your vulnerability in sharing creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond what you might imagine. And if you've found value in what we've explored so far, a simple like on this video sends a powerful message. It tells YouTube that this content matters, that these ancient wisdoms need to be shared with more seekers like yourself. Your like isn't just a number, it's an endorsement that helps this message reach souls who are ready to hear it, who are perhaps struggling with the very questions we're addressing. Your participation here is what allows this channel to grow and reach more people with this type of content. When you subscribe, you're not just following a channel, you're joining a community of conscious creators, people who understand that spirituality isn't about outdated dogma, but about practical, life-changing truth. You're saying yes to being part of a movement that's reclaiming the authentic power of spiritual practice. I genuinely see each subscription as a sacred trust. It means you believe in the message we're sharing here, that you want to be part of this journey of discovery and awakening. Together, we're creating something beautiful, a space where ancient wisdom meets modern understanding, where spiritual principles are presented with clarity and practical application. But let's return now to the heart of what we're exploring, because what comes next will blow your mind. We've established that your consciousness creates your reality, that I am is the creative force of the universe expressing through you. But how exactly does this work in practice? How do you shift from asking to expressing, from supplication to manifestation? The answer lies in understanding the profound difference between desire that comes from lack and desire that emerges from divine expression. Here's a revelation that will transform your entire approach to manifestation. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. This isn't just a clever play on words, it's the hidden truth behind why some people seem to effortlessly attract abundance, while others struggle despite years of positive thinking. The universe doesn't respond to your wants, your needs, or even your desperate prayers. It responds to your identity, to who you believe yourself to be at the deepest level of consciousness. Think about this for a moment. Every morning when you wake up, you automatically step into an identity. Maybe you see yourself as someone who's struggling financially, someone who's prone to illness, or someone who just can't catch a break. Without realizing it, you're declaring to the universe, I am lack, I am limitation, I am not enough. And the universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, simply reflects back that identity in the form of experiences that match your inner beliefs. This is where the traditional mindset around manifestation gets it completely wrong. People spend hours visualizing, creating vision boards, repeating affirmations, all while maintaining the core identity of someone who doesn't have what they want. They say, I want abundance, while feeling poor inside. They declare, I want perfect health, while identifying as someone who is sick. The contradiction creates internal resistance that blocks the very thing they're trying to manifest. But here's the transformation that changes everything. Instead of saying, I want to be healthy, you begin to declare, I am health. Instead of I want prosperity, you affirm I am divine abundance in expression. This isn't just changing words, this is changing your fundamental identity. You're no longer someone seeking what you lack, you're someone expressing what you already are in spiritual truth. The impact of this shift is immediate and profound. When you declare from the I am consciousness, you're aligning with present tense reality rather than future-based hope. You're stepping into the truth that in the realm of spirit, everything already exists. Health already is, abundance already is, peace already is, love already is. Your role isn't to create these things, it's to express them through your consciousness. This is why Emmet Fox teaches us to speak in the present tense of spiritual fact rather than future possibility. When you say, I am perfect health manifested now, you're not trying to become healthy. You're declaring the spiritual truth that health is your natural state. You're removing the barriers that have been blocking its expression in your experience. The journey from wanting to being is like the difference between looking at a photograph of food when you're hungry versus actually eating a nourishing meal. One keeps you focused on the absence, the other fills you with satisfaction. When you shift your identity to align with what you desire, you stop emanating lack and start radiating fulfillment. Hidden behind this simple shift lies a profound spiritual principle. The universe is consciousness, and consciousness recognizes itself. When you declare I am, followed by any truth about your divine nature, you're calling forth that aspect of yourself that has always existed but may have been obscured by false beliefs. You're not manufacturing something new, you're uncovering what has always been there. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's another layer to this teaching that most people miss entirely. It's not enough to just change your words. You must transform the feeling behind those words. The universe doesn't just respond to what you say, it responds to what you genuinely feel to be true. And this is where the real work begins, where the journey takes you from mere affirmation into authentic embodiment. Write in the comments, I choose to be rather than want. Here's a hidden truth that will revolutionize how you approach spiritual practice. Prayer, in its highest form, isn't pleading at all. It's declaring spiritual facts with the same certainty a scientist declares the laws of physics. When you pray scientifically, you're not asking God to change your circumstances. You're acknowledging what already exists in spiritual reality and calling it forth into physical form. This transformation in approach requires a complete shift in mindset. Instead of approaching prayer with an attitude of, please give me, you approach with an attitude of, thank you for what already is. When Emmet Fox teaches about scientific prayer, he's revealing the methodology behind every miracle. Jesus didn't beg God to multiply the loaves and fishes. He gave thanks for what was already accomplished in divine mind before it manifested physically. Think about the impact this has on your entire energetic signature. When you pray from need, you're broadcasting the frequency of lack to the universe. When you pray from gratitude for what already is, you're broadcasting the frequency of fulfillment. The universe can only give you more of what you're already vibrating at. This isn't mystical theory. This is practical spiritual law in action. But here's where many people get stuck in their manifestation journey. They try to affirm and declare without first preparing the mental space where these truths can take root. Your thoughts are literally the creative mold into which divine power pours itself to create form. If your mold is cracked with doubt, distorted with fear, or cluttered with contradictory beliefs, what manifests will reflect that chaos. Imagine you're a sculptor working with molten gold. The beauty and precision of your final creation depends entirely on the quality of your mold. If the mold has imperfections, the gold will take on those imperfections. Your mind works the same way with divine creative force. When you hold a clear, focused thought aligned with spiritual truth, that thought becomes the perfect mold for manifestation. This reveals why so many people struggle despite using the right words and affirmations. They're trying to pour divine power into minds that are scattered, anxious, or filled with conflicting beliefs. It's like trying to pour water into a container with holes. The very vessel meant to hold the blessing is sabotaging the process. The revelations behind successful manifestation go far beyond positive thinking. It's about creating internal coherence between what you think, what you feel, and what you speak. When these three elements align in the consciousness of I am, you create a perfect channel for divine expression. Your thoughts provide the direction, your feelings provide the power, and your words provide the form. Consider this profound truth. Every thought you think is either building or destroying your capacity to manifest. Undisciplined thinking creates undisciplined results. A mind that wanders between faith and doubt, between affirmation and worry, creates a confused, energetic signal that produces confused results in your physical reality. Behind every successful manifestation lies a period of mental discipline and inner alignment. It's not about forcing your thoughts into rigid patterns, but about gently returning your mind again and again to the truth of what you're declaring. Like training a muscle, you're training your consciousness to hold steady in the reality you're choosing to create. This is why meditation and silence play such crucial roles in the manifestation process. In silence, you create the perfect conditions for divine ideas to take shape in your mind. Without the constant chatter of anxious thoughts, worried projections, and fearful imaginations, pure spiritual truth can establish itself as your dominant mental frequency. Now I want to share with you something that will completely reframe how you view your own creative power. There's a reason why some people can manifest seemingly impossible things while others struggle with the smallest desires. It has nothing to do with worthiness or divine favoritism and everything to do with understanding the delicate relationship between thought, feeling, and spoken word. Write in the comments, "My thoughts create my reality." Here's the missing piece that most people overlook. Thought provides the direction, but feeling gives life to manifestation. You can repeat affirmations for hours, craft perfect visualizations, and maintain disciplined thinking. But without the corresponding feeling, your words remain empty shells floating in the air. It's the feeling that breathes life into your declarations, that transforms mere words into creative force. Think about the difference between someone mechanically reciting, "I am abundant," while their heart feels empty, versus someone declaring those same words with a deep cellular knowing of divine provision flowing through them. The words are identical, but the impact is worlds apart. The second person is affirming from a place of inner knowing rather than mental repetition, and this makes all the difference. In the world, this understanding completely transforms how you approach your spiritual practice. You're no longer trying to convince yourself or the universe of something you don't really believe. Instead, you're cultivating a genuine feeling state that aligns with the truth you're declaring. You're not pretending to feel abundant. You're connecting with the aspect of yourself that is abundance, that has always been abundance, waiting to be recognized and expressed. Behind every miraculous manifestation lies this secret. The person didn't just think it or say it, they felt it with such conviction that their entire being became a magnet for that reality. They didn't affirm from the surface level of mind. They affirmed from the depths of their soul, where doubt hasn't taken root, where fear has no authority. But here's where this journey takes an even more fascinating turn. Every word you speak is actually a decree that plants seeds in the invisible realm of consciousness. Your speech isn't just communication, it's creation in action. The ancient wisdom traditions understood this power so deeply that they guarded their words as if they were guarding the most sacred temple. Consider the impact this has on your daily life. When you say, "I can't afford this," you're not just making an observation, you're issuing a decree that reinforces limitation in your consciousness. When you declare, "I'm always sick during winter," you're programming your body to manifest that reality Most people speak carelessly, unknowingly, using the creative power of the word against themselves. This revelations about the power of speech goes far beyond positive thinking. It's about recognizing that your words carry the very essence of creation itself. When you speak from the I am consciousness, you're not just talking, you're legislating reality into existence. Your words become the bridge between the invisible realm of spirit and the visible world of form. The transformation that occurs when you begin to guard your speech is remarkable. Suddenly, you become aware of how often you've been unconsciously decreeing limitation, lack, and struggle into your experience. You realize that the very phrases you've been casually tossing around have been shaping your reality in ways you never imagined. But there's another dimension to this that might surprise you. Sometimes the most powerful creation happens not through speaking, but through sacred silence. There's a pregnant silence that exists before any manifestation, a creative void where divine ideas gestate before taking form. Many people feel compelled to fill every moment with words, affirmations, and mental chatter, not realizing they're actually interfering with the natural creative process. The masters understood that silence isn't the absence of power, it's power in its purest, most concentrated form. In silence, you create space for divine intelligence to work without the interference of human will. You allow the perfect word to emerge from spirit itself, rather than forcing words from mental effort. This is why the most effective manifestors know when to speak and when to be still. They understand that there's a rhythm to creation, a divine timing that includes both active declaration and receptive silence. They've learned to trust the process, to allow space for the invisible to become visible without rushing or forcing the outcome. Now I want to reveal to you what happens behind the scenes. When you finally align thought, feeling, and speech with the truth of who you are, this is where the real magic begins, where manifestation stops being a struggle and becomes as natural as breathing. Picture this: silence isn't empty space, waiting to be filled with sound. Silence is the creative womb of the universe itself, the sacred space where divine ideas gestate and mature before taking form in the physical world. When you truly understand this, your entire approach to manifestation transforms. You stop frantically trying to manifest through constant affirmation and start creating space for divine intelligence to work its miracles. Think about how a seed grows in the dark, silent earth. It doesn't need constant encouragement or manipulation. It needs the perfect conditions to unfold according to its divine blueprint. Your desires and prayers work the same way. When you plant them in the fertile silence of aligned consciousness and then rest in trust, they begin to manifest with a natural elegance that forced effort could never achieve. This hidden truth about silence explains why some of the most powerful manifestors spend significant time in quiet meditation and contemplation. They're not being passive, they're creating the optimal conditions for divine creation to occur. In silence, you stop interfering with the creative process through doubt, impatience, and anxious thinking. You become a pure channel for spiritual law to operate through you. But here's where a profound transformation occurs in how you relate to the divine. Instead of approaching God as someone who needs to give you something, you begin to recognize what has already been given. This shift from asking to expressing is perhaps the most revolutionary idea in all of spiritual practice. When you say, "God, heal me," you're operating from the consciousness of separation and lack. But when you declare, "Thank you, I am eternal life in perfect expression," you're aligning with what already is. In spiritual truth, the impact of this transformation ripples through every aspect of your life. You're no longer a beggar at the gates of heaven, hoping for scraps of divine favor. You're recognizing yourself as the very expression of divine life in human form. This isn't arrogance, this is the humility to accept what God has already declared about you. Consider how this changes the entire energy behind your prayers and affirmations. When you express rather than ask, you're coming from a place of gratitude for what exists rather than need for what's missing. You're acknowledging the perfect health, abundant provision, and divine love that already surrounds and fills you, waiting only for your recognition to manifest in visible form. This is why ancient mystics spoke of praying without ceasing. They weren't referring to constant petitioning, but to living in a state of continuous recognition of divine presence and perfection. Every breath becomes a thank you. Every moment becomes an opportunity to express what you already are, rather than seek what you think you lack. The revelations that unfold when you embrace this approach are profound. You discover that what you've been desperately seeking has never been absent. The peace you've been praying for is your natural state, temporarily obscured by anxious thinking. The abundance you've been asking for is your divine inheritance, blocked only by beliefs in limitation and scarcity. Behind every breakthrough in manifestation lies this fundamental shift, from the mindset of a seeker to the consciousness of a finder, from someone who needs to someone who already has, from a person trying to get God's attention to someone recognizing they are God's attention in individual expression. Now I want to take you even deeper into territory that most spiritual teachers rarely explore. There's a level of manifestation that goes beyond getting what you want, beyond even expressing what you are. It's about recognizing that you and your world are not separate entities, but different aspects of one divine consciousness playing out an infinite story of creation. Here's a practice that will revolutionize your spiritual journey. The moment you catch yourself speaking limitation, immediately cancel that error by declaring truth from the I am consciousness. This isn't about suppressing negative thoughts or pretending everything is perfect. It's about recognizing that every word you speak is actively programming your reality, and you have the power to interrupt that programming the instant you become aware of it. Picture yourself in conversation, and you hear yourself say, "I can't afford that." Instead of letting that decree settle into your consciousness, you immediately and silently declare, "Cancel that. I am divine abundance in perfect expression." You're not denying the current circumstance. You're refusing to reinforce it with your creative word. You're choosing to program your consciousness with truth rather than with temporary appearances. This transformation in how you handle your speech reveals something profound about the nature of consciousness itself. Your words are like a constant radio broadcast that your subconscious mind receives and translates into experience. When you become vigilant about this broadcast, when you consciously choose to cancel error and replace it with truth, you're literally reprogramming the very software that creates your reality. The impact of this practice becomes evident when you start listening to how you speak throughout an average day. Your speech patterns reveal the quality of your consciousness with startling accuracy. If you frequently speak about struggle, lack, illness, or limitation, you're unconsciously creating more of these experiences. Your casual conversations are actually manifestation sessions, whether you realize it or not. Behind every habitual phrase lies a belief system that's either serving your highest good or sabotaging it. When you say, "I'm always running late," you're not just describing a pattern, you're strengthening that pattern with the creative power of your word. When you declare, "I can never find parking," you're instructing your subconscious to ensure that parking remains elusive. But here's where this understanding becomes truly empowering. The same power that creates limitation through unconscious speech can create freedom through conscious speaking. Every word becomes an opportunity to choose your reality. Every conversation becomes a chance to reinforce the truth of your divine nature rather than the illusions of limitation. This practice requires a fundamental shift in your relationship with language itself. You begin to see words not as mere communication tools, but as creative instruments of immense power. You start to choose your words the way an artist chooses colors, understanding that each one contributes to the masterpiece of your lived experience. The revelations that come from this level of consciousness are profound. You discover that you've been unconsciously using the very power that could liberate you to keep yourself bound. You realize that the casual complaints, the habitual pessimism, the throwaway comments about lack and limitation have been actively working against your highest good. When you master this practice of immediate error cancellation, something beautiful begins to happen. Your speech becomes increasingly aligned with truth. Instead of speaking from reaction, you start speaking from recognition. Instead of describing what seems to be, you begin declaring what you choose to be. Your words become a continuous affirmation of your divine nature and unlimited potential. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't require perfection. It simply requires awareness and willingness to course correct moment by moment. Each time you catch yourself speaking limitation and immediately replace it with truth, you're strengthening the neural pathways of divine thinking. You're training your consciousness to default to truth rather than error. Now, I want to show you how this practice connects to something even more fundamental about the nature of reality itself. When you understand that your consciousness doesn't just influence your world, but actually creates it, everything you've learned about speech, silence, and manifestation begins to form a complete picture of your true creative power. Here's where the rubber meets the road in spiritual practice. You must live as if complete. This doesn't mean pretending or putting on a show for others. It means acting, walking, speaking, and thinking as one who has already received what is being manifested. This is how you demonstrate faith in spiritual law, not through words alone, but through the total coherence of your being. Think about how different your day would be if you moved through the world as someone who already has perfect health, divine abundance, and complete inner peace. How would you walk? How would you speak to others? How would you make decisions? This isn't about faking it until you make it. This is about aligning with the spiritual truth that these qualities already exist within you, waiting to be expressed through your consciousness. The transformation that occurs when you embody this principle is remarkable. Your entire energy signature changes. Instead of emanating need, lack, or desperation, you begin to radiate fulfillment, gratitude, and quiet, confidence. People sense this shift even if they can't articulate it. Opportunities begin to appear because you're no longer vibrating from a place of trying to get something. You're vibrating from a place of already having it. But here's where many people stumble on their spiritual journey. They think manifestation requires tremendous human effort, strain, and force. They exhaust themselves trying to make things happen, pushing against resistance, struggling to convince the universe to give them what they want. This approach not only fails to manifest effectively, it actually pushes away what they're seeking by creating an energy of desperation and lack. The hidden truth behind effortless manifestation is this: your job isn't to make things happen through willpower. Your job is to align with divine law and allow grace to flow through you. It's like trying to swim upstream versus going with the current. When you align with spiritual principles and release the need to control every detail, life begins to flow with an ease that amazes you. Consider the difference between forcing a door open that's meant to remain closed versus walking through a door that opens naturally as you approach. The destination may be the same, but the journey is completely different. One creates struggle, frustration, and exhaustion. The other creates a sense of being perfectly guided and supported by life itself. This understanding completely revolutionizes how you approach challenges and desires. Instead of asking, "How can I make this happen?" you start asking, "How can I align myself more perfectly with the divine flow?" Instead of pushing and striving, you start recognizing and following the path of least resistance that leads to your highest good. The revelations that emerge from this approach are profound. you discover that the universe is constantly conspiring to bring you what serves your greatest joy and growth. You realize that when you stop fighting life and start dancing with it, miracles become a natural part of your experience. What once seemed impossible begins to unfold with a grace and timing that no amount of human effort could have orchestrated. Behind every effortless manifestation lies this principle. Alignment with divine law creates a natural magnetism for what belongs in your experience. You don't have to chase your good. When you're aligned, your good chases you. You become like a tuning fork that naturally attracts experiences matching your vibrational frequency. The impact of living from this space of trust and alignment extends far beyond personal manifestation. You become a conduit for divine grace in the world. Your presence itself begins to uplift and inspire others. You demonstrate through your very being that there's another way to live, a way that's graceful, joyful, and effortlessly abundant. Now I want to reveal something even more profound about the nature of manifestation that most people never realize. There's a level of spiritual maturity where you stop trying to manifest things and instead become a clear channel for divine will to express itself through your life. Write in the comments, "I trust the divine flow." Here's a hidden truth that will shake everything you thought you knew about creation. Everything is already done. In spiritual reality, creation is complete. This isn't metaphorical or mystical speculation. This is the fundamental nature of divine consciousness. You're not creating something new when you manifest. You're allowing what already exists in divine mind to take form in the physical realm. This completely transforms your relationship with desire, manifestation, and even your sense of personal agency. Think about the implications of this revelation. Every form of good you could ever want, perfect health, abundant provision, harmonious relationships, creative fulfillment, already exists as a perfected idea in divine consciousness. Your role isn't to convince God to create these things or to manufacture them through effort. Your role is to become a clear, unobstructed channel through which these divine ideas can express themselves in your experience. This understanding brings an extraordinary sense of relief and empowerment. You're no longer carrying the impossible burden of creating your reality from scratch. Instead, you're participating in the divine unfoldment of perfection that was established before time began. You're not the creator, you're the expression, the focal point through which infinite good reveals itself in individual form. The transformation this brings to your spiritual practice is profound. Instead of desperately trying to manifest from a place of lack, you're aligning yourself with what already is. Instead of pleading with the universe to give you something, you're preparing your consciousness to receive what has always been yours. This is the difference between forcing doors open and simply removing the barriers that have been keeping them closed. But this level of understanding requires something that many spiritual seekers resist: daily consciousness training. This isn't about perfection or rigid discipline. It's about the gentle, consistent practice of guarding your thoughts, feelings, and words throughout each day, choosing truth over habitual limitation. It's like training for a marathon. Each day you build spiritual muscle memory until divine thinking becomes your natural state. Consider the impact this has on your moment-to-moment experience. Every time you catch yourself thinking from limitation and gently redirect to truth, you're strengthening the neural pathways of divine consciousness. Every time you choose a word of blessing over a word of complaint, you're training your being to be a clearer channel for good. This isn't work in the traditional sense. It's play, it's artistry, it's the joyful practice of becoming who you really are. Behind every spiritual breakthrough lies this foundation of consistent consciousness training. The masters didn't achieve their state through occasional peak experiences or weekend workshops. They achieved it through the patient, loving cultivation of divine awareness in ordinary moments. They made the decision, again and again, to see through the eyes of spirit rather than the lens of limitation. The revelations that come from this practice are life-changing. You begin to see that your thoughts aren't just random mental events. They're creative forces. With real power, you realize that your feelings aren't just reactions to circumstances. They're magnetic forces that attract corresponding experiences. You understand that your words aren't just communication. They're decrees that shape reality. This daily training creates a beautiful momentum in your life. Each day of choosing truth over error, love over fear, gratitude over complaint, builds upon the last. You're not just changing your thoughts, you're rewiring your entire consciousness to default to divine truth rather than human limitation. You're becoming a living expression of the very principles you're learning. The journey from occasional spiritual awareness to consistent divine consciousness is like the difference between visiting a foreign country and actually living there. At first, everything requires conscious effort and attention, but gradually, through consistent practice, this new way of being becomes as natural as breathing. Now I want to share with you what happens when this training reaches a tipping point, when divine consciousness becomes your default setting, rather than something you have to consciously achieve. This is where the deepest mysteries of manifestation begin to reveal themselves. Here's a revelation that will set you free from one of the greatest sources of spiritual suffering. You must release anxiety about timing. Divine order operates in perfect rhythm, not according to human impatience. When you act with certainty but without urgency, you align yourself with the natural flow of creation itself. Timing anxiety is like trying to force a rosebud to bloom by pulling on its petals. You don't speed up the process, you damage the flower. Think about how much emotional energy you've wasted worrying whether your manifestations are coming fast enough, whether you're doing something wrong because results aren't immediate, whether maybe this whole spiritual approach doesn't work. This anxiety isn't just uncomfortable, it actively interferes with the very process you're trying to accelerate. Impatience is a form of doubt dressed up as enthusiasm, and doubt has never manifested anything good. The transformation that occurs when you truly release timing anxiety is profound. You begin to move through life with a different quality of energy altogether. Instead of the frantic vibration of someone racing against a cosmic clock, you embody the serene confidence of someone who trusts in divine timing. You act when inspired to act, rest when guided to rest, and hold space with patience when the time is right for waiting. Behind this understanding lies a hidden truth about the nature of manifestation itself. The universe conspires to deliver everything at the precise moment when you're most ready to receive it, not when your human mind thinks it should arrive. Sometimes what feels like delay is actually divine protection, preparing you for a blessing that's even greater than what you originally imagined. But now, I want to take you into even more advanced territory, where the deepest principles of unity consciousness reveal themselves. Here's something that might challenge everything you've been taught about protection, defense, and spiritual warfare. Nothing outside you has power to harm or limit you. This isn't positive thinking or spiritual bypassing. This is the fundamental truth about the nature of reality itself. Consider the implications of this revelation. All seeming opposition, whether it appears as difficult people, challenging circumstances, health issues, or financial problems, is actually a reflection of inner consciousness that can be transformed. This doesn't mean these experiences aren't real or that they don't require practical action. It means that their ultimate source and solution lie within your own consciousness. The impact this understanding has on how you navigate life is revolutionary. Instead of spending energy fighting against external conditions, you learn to address the inner states that have given rise to those conditions. Instead of battling symptoms, you treat causes. Instead of trying to control your outer world, you take responsibility for your inner world, knowing that the outer must reflect whatever is consistently held within. This principle operates whether you believe in it or not, which is why some people can move through the most challenging circumstances with grace and emerge stronger, while others are defeated by relatively minor obstacles. It's not about their external resources or advantages, it's about the quality of consciousness they bring to their experiences. Think about someone you know who seems untouchable by negativity, who maintains peace regardless of what's happening around them. They've discovered, consciously or unconsciously, that their inner state determines their experience more than any external circumstance. They've learned to be the calm center in the storm rather than another piece of debris being tossed around. The journey to this level of consciousness requires a fundamental shift in how you view challenges and opposition. Instead of seeing them as enemies to be defeated, you begin to recognize them as messengers pointing toward aspects of your consciousness that are ready for healing and transformation. Every difficulty becomes an opportunity for inner growth and greater alignment with truth. Behind every experience of opposition lies an invitation to examine what within you is resonating with or creating that experience. This isn't about blame or guilt, it's about empowerment. When you understand that you're the creative center of your experience, you also understand that you have the power to transform any situation by transforming the consciousness that's sustaining it. Now, I want to reveal to you the most profound aspect of this understanding, something that goes beyond personal manifestation into the very heart of what it means to live as a divine being in human form. Here's where the deepest transformation occurs in your spiritual journey. You must learn to generate feelings from being, not from trying to get what you lack. This shift in how you access spiritual feelings is perhaps the most crucial element in authentic manifestation. When you try to feel grateful for something you don't have, when you attempt to feel abundant while focused on scarcity, you're creating internal resistance that blocks the very flow you're trying to create. Think about the difference between these two approaches. In the first, you're reaching for feelings you think you should have, trying to manufacture gratitude, peace, or joy as tools to get something. In the second, you're connecting with the part of yourself that is gratitude, that is peace, that is joy, not because of what you have or lack, but because these qualities are fundamental aspects of your divine nature. This understanding revolutionizes your entire emotional relationship with manifestation. Instead of using feelings as a means to an end, you recognize feelings as expressions of your true nature. You're not trying to feel abundant to get money. You're connecting with the abundance that you are, which naturally expresses itself as financial flow. You're not generating gratitude to receive blessings. You're recognizing the gratitude that emerges naturally when you see how blessed you already are. Behind this principle lies a hidden truth about the nature of grace itself. Grace isn't earned through merit, accumulated through good deeds, or achieved through spiritual performance. Grace is the natural flow of goodness that occurs when inner resistance is removed through surrender. It's like removing a dam from a river. The water doesn't need to be created. It simply needs to be allowed to flow. Consider how this changes your relationship with divine blessings and manifestations. You're no longer trying to earn God's favor or prove your worthiness. You're simply removing the inner obstacles, the fears, doubts, beliefs in limitation that have been restricting the flow of good that's always trying to reach you. Grace has been waiting patiently for your surrender, your willingness to stop resisting the very love you've been seeking. The impact this has on your daily spiritual practice is profound. Instead of striving to be good enough for grace, you're learning to be open enough for grace. Instead of working harder to deserve blessings, you're working gentler to allow blessings. This isn't laziness or passivity. It's the highest form of spiritual sophistication, recognizing that your ego's efforts often interfere with spirit's natural flow. Think about moments in your life when everything seemed to flow effortlessly, when doors opened without effort, when solutions appeared without struggle. Those weren't times when you were working harder or being more deserving. Those were times when you were in a state of inner surrender, when resistance was low, when grace could flow through you unobstructed. This understanding transforms your approach to challenges and obstacles as well. Instead of fighting against difficulties with force and determination, you learn to address them with surrender and wisdom. You stop asking, "How can I overcome this?" and start asking, "What is this situation asking me to release?" The solution often lies not in adding more effort, but in subtracting resistance. The revelations that emerge from this level of spiritual maturity are breathtaking. You discover that what you've been seeking through action was actually waiting for your permission to flow. You realize that the love, abundance, health, and peace you've been pursuing were never absent. They were simply blocked by your own resistance to receiving them. Behind every graceful manifestation lies this principle of allowance over effort. The people who seem to have effortless lives haven't figured out how to try harder. They've learned how to surrender more completely. They've discovered that grace responds not to worthiness, but to openness, not to perfection, but to willingness. Now I want to take you even deeper into this mystery of grace and surrender, because there's a level of understanding that goes beyond individual manifestation into recognizing yourself as part of the very fabric of divine expression itself. Write in the comments, "I allow grace to flow." Here's a principle that will completely transform how you see your relationship with the world. Everything you experience is a mirror of your consciousness. This isn't metaphorical or theoretical. It's a living spiritual law that operates with mathematical precision. Change your inner state, and the outer reflection must change accordingly. This mirror principle explains why two people can look at the same situation and have completely different experiences of it. Think about the profound implications of this truth. Every relationship reflects back to you some aspect of your own consciousness. Every circumstance mirrors your inner beliefs and expectations. Every challenge reveals areas where your alignment with truth could be strengthened. The world isn't happening to you, it's reflecting you. This understanding shifts you from being a victim of circumstances to being the conscious creator of your experience. The transformation this brings to your spiritual practice is revolutionary. Instead of trying to fix your outer world, you focus on healing and aligning your inner world. Instead of managing symptoms, you address causes. When you change the quality of consciousness you're holding, the mirror of the world adjusts automatically to reflect that new state. Consider how this changes your approach to difficult relationships or challenging situations. Rather than asking, "How can I change this person or situation?" you start asking, "What in my consciousness is creating or attracting this reflection?" This isn't about taking blame for everything that happens. It's about taking responsibility for the consciousness that shapes your experience of what happens. But here's where this understanding becomes even more profound. Not all desires are created equal. There's a crucial distinction between desires that emerge from ego lack and desires that arise from spirit expansion. Learning to discern between these two types of desire is essential for authentic manifestation. Ego-driven desires stem from a sense of incompleteness, from trying to fill a perceived void or prove something to the world. Spirit-driven desires, on the other hand, emerge from wholeness, seeking greater expression. They're not about getting something you lack, but about expressing more of what you already are. These desires feel expansive rather than contractive, joyful rather than desperate, inspiring rather than draining. They align you with divine purpose rather than personal agenda. The impact of purifying your desires in this way is extraordinary. When you learn to distinguish between ego wants and spirit calling, your manifestations become more aligned, more fulfilling, and more effortless. You stop chasing things that would never truly satisfy and start moving toward expressions of your highest nature. Behind every authentic manifestation lies this foundation of purified desire. The mystics understood that true spiritual practice wasn't about getting what the ego wants, but about aligning with what the soul is called to express. They knew that when desire is purified through connection with divine purpose, manifestation becomes a natural extension of spiritual growth rather than a manipulation of spiritual laws. This purification process requires honest self-examination. It asks you to look at each desire and feel into its origin. Does this desire make you feel expanded and inspired, or contracted and needy? Does it connect you with your sense of divine purpose, or does it feel like compensation for something missing? This isn't about judging your desires, but about understanding their nature so you can work with them consciously. The revelations that come from this level of discernment are profound. You begin to see how many of your struggles have come from trying to manifest from ego consciousness rather than spirit consciousness. You realize that the universe isn't withholding anything from you. It's waiting for you to desire from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. Consider the difference between wanting money because you're afraid of poverty versus desiring financial flow because you're excited to serve and contribute more fully. Both might result in increased income, but the quality of the experience and the sustainability of the result will be completely different. One comes from fear and contraction, the other from love and expansion. Now, I want to reveal to you something that goes even beyond purification of desire, something that touches the very heart of what it means to live in complete harmony with divine will. Write in the comments, "I desire from wholeness, not lack." There comes a moment in every spiritual journey when you must make a profound decision. Will you remain within the comfortable boundaries of traditional religious forms, or will you step into the direct experience of unity with divine source? This transformation from religion to truth is perhaps the most radical shift a soul can make. It's the difference between reading about water and drinking it, between studying maps of mountains and actually climbing them. Think about how most spiritual traditions operate. They give you intermediaries, rituals, and prescribed ways of approaching the divine. While these can be beautiful and meaningful, they can also create the very separation they claim to bridge. They position God as out there, accessible only through specific channels, requiring particular credentials or ceremonies to reach. But the truth that Emmet Fox reveals is far more intimate and immediate than any religious system could contain. This understanding transforms everything you thought you knew about accessing divine power. You're not seeking permission from any external authority to commune with your source. You're not dependent on anyone else's interpretation of spiritual truth. You have direct access to the same consciousness that created the universe, because that consciousness is you, expressing as you, through you. The impact this recognition has on your daily life is revolutionary. Prayer becomes intimate conversation rather than formal petition. Spiritual practice becomes natural expression rather than obligatory ritual. Your relationship with the divine becomes immediate and personal rather than mediated and theoretical. You stop being a follower of truth and start being a living expression of it. But here's where the deepest revelation occurs. Divine presence doesn't come to you from somewhere else. It's not attracted, summoned, or achieved through effort. Divine presence is awakened within you by the simple removal of mental obstacles that have been obscuring it. It's like unveiling a statue that was always there, hidden beneath layers of dust and debris. Consider the profound simplicity of this truth. You've been seeking everywhere for what has never left you. You've been praying to invoke what is already present. You've been working to attract what is the very substance of your being. The journey home to divine consciousness isn't about traveling somewhere new. It's about removing the clouds that have been hiding the sun that always shines. Behind this understanding lies the secret of every mystical experience, every moment of divine communion, every instance of miraculous healing or manifestation. These aren't special dispensations from a distant God. They're the natural result of temporarily removing the mental obstacles that normally block your awareness of divine presence. In those moments, you're not receiving something new, you're recognizing what has always been there. The transformation this brings to your spiritual practice is profound. Instead of trying to reach God, you're learning to remove the barriers to experiencing God. Instead of seeking divine presence outside yourself, you're clearing the inner space where divine presence can be recognized. This is the difference between earning grace and allowing grace, between achieving enlightenment and uncovering the light that was never dimmed. Think about moments in your life when you felt most connected to the divine, perhaps in nature, in deep meditation, or during times of great joy or even crisis. In those moments, you weren't doing anything special to create the connection. You were simply free from the mental chatter, worry, and ego-driven thinking that normally occupies your consciousness. The presence was always there. You were just finally available to feel it. This understanding revolutionizes how you approach spiritual obstacles and challenges. Instead of seeing them as evidence that God is absent or that you're somehow failing in your practice, you begin to recognize them as opportunities to identify and remove the mental patterns that are blocking your awareness of divine presence. Every challenge becomes a gift, disguising itself as an awakening. The revelations that emerge from this level of understanding are breathtaking. You discover that what you thought was a relationship between you and God was actually God recognizing itself in and as you. You realize that the separation you've been trying to heal was never real in the first place. It was only a misunderstanding of your true nature. Now I want to take you into the culminating understanding of everything we've explored together, where all these principles converge into a singular recognition that will forever change how you see yourself and your place in the divine scheme of creation. Here's the final piece that unlocks everything we've been building toward. You must end internal conflict by recognizing that there are no opposing forces, only one power expressing in countless forms. This understanding dissolves the very foundation of struggle that has been keeping you from your divine inheritance. When you truly grasp that there is only one creative force in the universe, the same force that beats your heart, grows the trees, and moves the planets, everything that seemed to oppose you reveals itself as another face of divine expression. Think about how this transforms your entire approach to life's challenges. Instead of battling against circumstances, people, or even aspects of yourself, you begin to recognize everything as part of the one divine tapestry. Opposition becomes invitation, resistance becomes redirection. What seemed like enemies reveal themselves as teachers, and what felt like obstacles transform into stepping stones toward greater understanding. The impact this has on your inner peace is immediate and profound. When you stop dividing the world into forces for and against you, when you cease believing in powers that can truly harm or limit you, a deep tranquility settles into your soul. You're no longer at war with life, you're dancing with it. You're no longer defending against an imaginary threat, you're embracing the perfect unfolding of divine will. Behind this understanding lies the secret of every master teacher throughout history. They didn't overcome opposition through force or struggle. They transcended opposition by recognizing its illusory nature. They saw through the appearance of conflict to the underlying unity that connects all things. This is how they could maintain peace in the midst of apparent chaos, how they could love their enemies and bless those who persecuted them. But there's an even more practical dimension to this understanding that revolutionizes your daily spiritual practice. When you shift from petition to gratitude, from asking for what seems missing to thanking God for what is, you align yourself with the creative power of appreciation rather than the depleting energy of need. Gratitude isn't just a nice feeling, it's a vibrational state that magnetizes more of what you're grateful for. Consider the transformative journey from, "Dear God, please give me health," to, "Thank you, God, for the perfect health that is my true nature." In the first prayer, you're affirming lack and positioning yourself as someone who doesn't have what they need. In the second, you're acknowledging what already exists in spiritual truth and allowing it to manifest in your experience. This shift in approach creates a completely different energetic signature. Instead of broadcasting need and desperation, you're radiating appreciation and fulfillment. Instead of focusing on what's wrong that needs fixing, you're acknowledging what's right that needs recognition. The universe responds to this grateful consciousness by reflecting more and more reasons to be grateful. The revelations that emerge from practicing gratitude over petition are extraordinary. You begin to see abundance everywhere, even in the smallest details of your daily life. You start recognizing the countless ways divine love is already expressing itself through your experience. What once seemed like scarcity reveals itself as abundance dressed in different clothes. Think about the difference this makes in your manifestation practice. When you're grateful for what you already have, you create space for more to flow. When you appreciate the health you do possess, that appreciation draws greater vitality. When you give thanks for the love already in your life, that gratitude opens you to receiving even more love. Gratitude doesn't deny your desires, it creates the perfect soil for them to grow. Behind every miracle lies this foundation of grateful recognition rather than desperate petition. The people who manifest effortlessly aren't those who ask the most fervently, they're those who appreciate the most consistently. They've discovered that thanksgiving is the highest form of prayer because it acknowledges what God has already given, rather than implying that God is withholding something. Now I want to share with you the final integration of everything we've explored, where you step fully into your role as a conscious collaborator with divine creation itself, where manifestation becomes as natural as breathing, because you've remembered who you truly are. Write in the comments, "I see only one power everywhere." This is where the journey reaches its highest point, the practice of consciousness vigilance. This isn't about perfection or rigid monitoring. It's about the gentle, loving discipline of consistently aligning your mental-emotional state with divine truth. It's like tuning an instrument before every performance, ensuring that you're vibrating in harmony with the cosmic symphony rather than creating discord through unconscious thoughts and feelings. Think about how this transforms your daily experience. Instead of being tossed around by whatever thoughts or emotions arise spontaneously, you become the conscious conductor of your inner orchestra. You notice when you're drifting into limitation or fear, and you gently guide yourself back to truth. You catch yourself when you're speaking lack or difficulty, and you redirect toward abundance and ease. This isn't work, it's artistry. It's the joyful practice of remembering who you really are moment by moment. The impact this has on your entire life trajectory is profound. Each time you consciously choose divine truth over human limitation, you're not just changing that moment. You're establishing new neural pathways, creating new habits of consciousness that become your default over time. You're literally rewiring your brain to think from Christ consciousness rather than ego consciousness. But here's where everything we've discussed culminates into the most profound recognition of all. You are not separate from God, trying to connect with God. You are a unique expression of the one divine consciousness, individualized within God, but never apart from God. This understanding doesn't diminish your individuality. It sanctifies it. You're not losing yourself in God, you're finding your truest self as God expressed in singular form. Consider the revolutionary impact this recognition has on your sense of purpose and identity. You're not a separate being trying to get God's attention or earn divine favor. You're God's attention focused into individual expression. You're not seeking divine love. You are divine love, experiencing itself through human consciousness. You're not trying to connect with your source. You are your source becoming aware of itself. This understanding transforms everything you've learned about manifestation into something far more beautiful and natural. You're not trying to manipulate spiritual laws to get what you want. You're allowing divine will to express itself through your desires, your words, your actions. You're not forcing manifestation. You're becoming such a clear channel for divine expression that manifestation becomes inevitable. Behind every moment of authentic spiritual power lies this recognition of divine identity. When Jesus walked on water, healed the sick, or multiplied loaves and fishes, he wasn't performing supernatural tricks. He was operating from the consciousness of unity, from the recognition that he and the Father were one. That divine power wasn't something he had to access from outside himself. It was what he was. The transformation that occurs when you truly embrace. This identity is nothing short of miraculous. Your prayers become conversations between aspects of the same consciousness. Your desires align naturally with divine will because you are divine will individualized. Your manifestations flow effortlessly because you're no longer trying to get something from God. You're allowing God to express more fully through you. This doesn't mean you become perfect or infallible in human terms. It means you recognize that your imperfections are part of the perfect process of divine experiencing itself in individual form. Your challenges become opportunities for God to know itself more deeply. Your growth becomes divine expansion. Your joy becomes cosmic celebration. The revelations that emerge from living from this level of consciousness are beyond description. You begin to see everyone and everything as expressions of the same divine consciousness that you are. Your compassion deepens not from trying to be more loving, but from recognizing that there is only love expressing itself in countless forms. Your peace becomes unshakable, not because external conditions are perfect, but because you know yourself as the very source of peace. Now I want to take you into the ultimate understanding that emerges from this recognition, where even the concept of manifestation dissolves into something far more beautiful, the simple, natural expression of what you are. Here's the most profound recognition you can have about reality. Everything is an extension of divine being. Your body isn't a vessel containing your soul. It's divine consciousness formed into matter. Your environment isn't separate from you. It's divine consciousness expressing as the stage upon which you experience yourself. Your relationships, your experiences, your challenges, and your triumphs are all forms of the one appearing as the many. This understanding dissolves the very foundation of separation that has caused all human suffering. Think about what this means. For how you relate to absolutely everything in your life. That person who irritates you, another face of divine consciousness, the challenge you're facing, divine wisdom appearing in disguise, the abundance you seek, already present as another expression of the infinite consciousness you are. When you truly grasp this, the entire game changes. You stop fighting against life and start recognizing yourself in everything you encounter. The transformation this brings to your daily experience is extraordinary. Suddenly, you're no longer trying to attract good things from outside yourself because you recognize that everything is already you in different forms. You're not trying to get love from others because you see that others are love expressing itself just as you are. You're not trying to acquire peace or abundance because you understand that these are simply different textures of the one consciousness you are. Behind this understanding lies the deepest secret of existence. Separation is an illusion. There has never been a separation between you and God, between you and others, between spirit and matter. What appears as separation is simply divine consciousness exploring itself from different vantage points. Like an actor playing multiple roles in the same play, the actor doesn't become separate from himself when he changes costumes. He simply experiences himself differently. Consider how this dissolves every form of spiritual seeking. You stop trying to reach God because you discover you are the very reaching of God toward itself. You stop trying to find your purpose because you realize you are purpose expressing. You stop trying to become enlightened because you recognize that enlightenment is simply divine consciousness awakening to its own nature through your awareness. The impact this has on your relationships is revolutionary. You stop trying to get people to be different because you see them as perfect expressions of divine consciousness having their own unique experience. You stop taking things personally because you understand that everyone is acting from their current level of awareness. You start seeing every interaction as divine consciousness meeting itself in different forms. This understanding transforms your approach to what you once called problems or challenges. Instead of seeing them as obstacles to your happiness or manifestations to overcome, you begin to recognize them as opportunities for divine consciousness to know itself more deeply through your experience. Every difficulty becomes a gift in disguise, every challenge an invitation to expand your recognition of what you are. Behind every mystical experience, every moment of profound peace, every instance of miraculous healing or manifestation, lies this simple recognition: there is only one, appearing as everything. When you stop seeing yourself as separate from this one, miracles become natural because you're no longer trying to bridge a gap that never existed. You're simply allowing consciousness to know itself more fully through your experience. The revelations that emerge from living this truth are breathtaking. You discover that what you thought was your individual consciousness is actually universal consciousness focused through the lens of your unique perspective. You realize that your thoughts aren't yours in the way you imagined. They're consciousness thinking through you. Your love isn't something you possess. It's the very nature of what you are, expressing itself. This doesn't eliminate your individuality. It reveals its true nature. You're not becoming less human. You're becoming truly human for the first time. You're not losing your identity. You're discovering your real identity as an individualized expression of infinite consciousness. Your personality, your gifts, your unique perspective, these become sacred instruments through which the One experiences and expresses itself. Now I want to reveal to you what happens when this understanding moves from intellectual concept to lived reality, when you embody this truth so completely that your very existence becomes a demonstration of divine unity in human form. Write in the comments, "I am divine consciousness, experiencing itself as me." This is where your spiritual journey transforms into something entirely different. Life becomes a constant recognition of divine presence, expressing in all forms, rather than seeking God elsewhere. You no longer have occasional spiritual moments, punctuating an otherwise mundane existence. Instead, every moment, every breath, every interaction becomes an opportunity to recognize the sacred expressing itself through the ordinary. You're not trying to find God in special places or during designated prayer times. You're recognizing God as the very fabric of existence itself. Think about how different your day becomes when you live from this recognition. You wake up not as a person beginning another day, but as divine consciousness emerging into a new expression of itself. You eat breakfast, not as mere physical nourishment, but as divine intelligence caring for divine form. You interact with people not as separate beings you're trying to get something from or give something to, but as different notes in the same cosmic symphony you're all playing together. The transformation this brings to your understanding of yourself is profound. Your individual expression is not something to be transcended or escaped from. It's sacred as a unique focal point of divine consciousness. You're not an isolated ego trying to merge with something greater. You're already merged. You're that something greater experiencing itself through individual expression. Your personality, your quirks, your talents, your challenges, these aren't obstacles to enlightenment. They're the very instruments through which enlightenment expresses itself. Behind this understanding lies the resolution of one of spirituality's greatest misconceptions. The idea that spiritual growth means eliminating your individuality. The truth is exactly the opposite. Divine consciousness doesn't want you to become less of who you are. It wants you to become more fully who you are, understanding that who you are is divine consciousness in unique expression. Your individuality isn't separate from your divinity. It's how your divinity chooses to experience itself. Consider what this means for your creative expression, your relationships, your career, your entire life path. Instead of thinking you need to conform to some spiritual ideal or suppress your natural interests and inclinations, you begin to see these as divine impulses seeking expression through you. Your passion for music becomes divine harmony expressing itself. Your love for teaching becomes divine wisdom sharing itself. Your desire to heal becomes divine compassion manifesting itself. The impact this has on your sense of purpose is revolutionary. You stop looking for your purpose as something to find or achieve, and you start recognizing purpose as something you are. Your very existence is purposeful because it's divine consciousness exploring itself through your unique perspective. You don't have to do anything special to fulfill your purpose. You fulfill it simply by being authentically who you are, understanding who you truly are. This recognition transforms your relationship with what you once called imperfections or limitations. Those aspects of yourself you've been trying to fix or improve reveal themselves as part of the perfect pattern of divine expression. Your sensitivity becomes divine empathy. Your intensity becomes divine passion. Even your struggles become divine strength learning itself. Nothing needs to be eliminated. Everything needs to be recognized for what it truly is. Behind every moment of authentic spiritual realization lies this integration of divine truth with human experience. You don't transcend your humanity. You recognize your humanity as an expression of divinity. You don't escape the world. You see the world as another face of the same consciousness you are. This isn't spiritual bypassing or denying difficulties. It's finding the sacred within everything, including challenges. The revelations that emerge from living this integrated awareness are extraordinary. You discover that the very things you thought were keeping you from God were actually God experiencing itself through diversity. Your emotions, your body, your relationships, your work, none of these are separate from your spiritual path. They are your spiritual path. They're the means through which divine consciousness knows itself more completely. This understanding brings an unprecedented sense of wholeness and integration to your life. You stop living divided between your spiritual self and your human self because you realize they were never separate. You stop trying to be someone different in meditation than you are in daily life because you understand that consciousness is seamless. Every moment becomes meditation when you recognize it as consciousness meeting itself. The transformation extends to how you see others as well. Everyone you encounter becomes a sacred expression of the same consciousness you are, having their own unique experience of being divine. Their apparent limitations become divine consciousness exploring boundaries. Their beauty becomes divine love recognizing itself. Their struggles become divine strength learning compassion. You see the Christ in everyone, not as metaphor, but as literal truth. Now I want to share with you what happens when this recognition becomes so natural, so integrated into your being, that you step into the highest expression of conscious living, becoming a clear, unobstructed channel for divine will to express itself through human form. Write in the comments, "My individuality is divinity, expressing uniquely." Here's where everything we've explored together reaches its ultimate flowering. You begin to see everything, people, nature, circumstances, even the most challenging situations, as different faces of the same divine consciousness. This isn't a philosophical concept you think about occasionally. It becomes your lived reality. The tree outside your window reveals itself as divine intelligence, expressing as growth and beauty. The person who cuts you off in traffic becomes divine consciousness, exploring impatience. The unexpected bill becomes divine wisdom, teaching you about trust and abundance. Think about the profound peace this understanding brings to your daily life. You stop taking anything personally because you recognize that everything is consciousness interacting with itself. You cease being offended or hurt because you understand that what appears as opposition is simply divine awareness, experiencing contrast to know itself more deeply. Your entire emotional landscape transforms because you're no longer fighting against life. You're recognizing life as a sacred dance of consciousness, exploring its infinite nature. The transformation that occurs when you truly embody this perspective is breathtaking. Relationships that once caused you stress become opportunities to witness divine love expressing in countless forms. Work that once felt draining becomes a stage for divine creativity to flow through you. Challenges that once overwhelmed you become invitations for divine wisdom to emerge. Through your experience, nothing is outside the sacred circle of divine expression. Behind this understanding lies the secret of effortless manifestation that most people spend years trying to achieve through techniques and practices. When your consciousness is aligned with the truth that everything is divine expression, manifestation happens naturally without strain or manipulation. You're no longer trying to force the universe to give you what you want. You're allowing the universe to express its infinite nature through your clear, aligned consciousness. Consider how different manifestation becomes when you approach it from this level of understanding. You're not trying to get something from a separate universe. You're allowing divine consciousness to express more of its inherent nature through your experience. You don't strain to attract abundance because you recognize yourself and everything around you as abundance in different forms. You don't struggle to find your perfect partner because you see divine love expressing itself in every interaction, drawing to you the perfect reflection of your inner state. This is why true masters throughout history seem to manifest so effortlessly. They weren't using secret techniques or special powers. They had simply aligned their consciousness so completely with divine truth that their very presence became a magnet for everything that reflected that truth. They didn't have to ask for good things because they recognized themselves as goodness itself, naturally attracting experiences that mirrored their inner recognition. The impact this has on your sense of purpose and direction is revolutionary. You stop struggling to figure out what you should do with your life because you understand that divine intelligence is constantly directing you toward your highest expression. You stop worrying about making the right choices because you recognize that consciousness itself is choosing through you. Every decision becomes an expression of divine will when your ego is aligned with divine intention. Behind every moment of true spiritual mastery lies this simple recognition. There is nothing to achieve because everything already is. There is nothing to get because you already have everything in the recognition of what you are. There is nothing to become because you are already the fullness of divine expression, simply allowing yourself to recognize and express that fullness more completely. This understanding transforms your entire relationship with time, goals, and achievement. You stop living in the future, waiting for when you'll finally have what you want, because you recognize that divine fulfillment is present in every moment. You stop grinding toward achievements because you understand that the very desire to achieve is divine creativity seeking expression through you. Success isn't something you chase. It's something you allow by aligning with the natural flow of divine expression. The revelations that emerge from this level of consciousness are beyond anything the mind can grasp intellectually. You discover that every prayer has already been answered in the realm of divine truth, and your role is simply to align your consciousness with that truth so it can manifest in form. You realize that every need has already been met in divine mind, and your work is to remove the mental barriers that are blocking that provision from your experience. This is why Emmet Fox's teaching is so powerful. It doesn't ask you to do more or be better. It asks you to recognize what already is and align your consciousness with that reality. It invites you to stop trying to create a good life and start recognizing that divine life is already expressing as you, ready to be experienced in its fullness the moment you cease resisting it. Now I want to reveal to you the ultimate understanding that emerges when you fully embody this truth, where manifestation transcends technique entirely and becomes the natural expression of who you know yourself to be. Write in the comments, "Everything reflects divine consciousness to me." This is where your entire existence transforms into something sacred and profound. All of life becomes prayer when you recognize divine presence in every moment and activity. Prayer is no longer something you do at designated times or in special places. Every breath you take becomes communion with the divine. Every step you walk becomes a sacred pilgrimage. Every word you speak becomes an offering of consciousness to consciousness. You're not praying to God, you're recognizing yourself as the prayer of God to itself. Think about how this revolutionizes your entire approach to daily life. Washing dishes becomes a meditation on divine service. Driving to work becomes a journey of conscious presence. Having conversations becomes divine intelligence communicating with itself through different forms. Nothing is mundane when you recognize it as an expression of the sacred. Every activity becomes infused with meaning because you see it as divine consciousness exploring itself through human experience. The transformation this brings to your spiritual practice is extraordinary. You stop compartmentalizing your life into spiritual times and regular times because you understand that all time is sacred when consciousness is present. You stop seeking special experiences of the divine because you recognize every experience as divine. You stop trying to become spiritual because you realize you're already the very spirituality you've been seeking. Behind this understanding lies the deepest wisdom of all spiritual traditions. Spiritual maturity means recognizing what already is, rather than trying to achieve what isn't. This completely inverts the traditional approach to spiritual growth. Instead of constantly striving to become more enlightened, more abundant, more peaceful, you begin recognizing the enlightenment, abundance, and peace that are already your true nature, simply waiting to be acknowledged and expressed. Consider how this shifts your entire relationship with personal development and spiritual practices. You're no longer using them to become someone different. You're using them to remember who you've always been. You're not building spiritual muscle to achieve great feats. You're removing the mental obstacles that have been hiding your inherent greatness. Every practice becomes an act of recognition rather than acquisition. The impact this has on your manifestations is profound. You stop trying to manifest things as if you were lacking them, and you start expressing things as if you already are them. You don't pursue health as something to achieve. You recognize the perfect health that is your spiritual nature and allow it to express through your physical form. You don't chase abundance as something to acquire. You acknowledge the infinite abundance that is your divine inheritance and let it flow through your experience. This understanding dissolves the very concept of spiritual seeking. You're no longer seeking God because you've recognized God as the seeker. You're no longer trying to find yourself because you've discovered that the one who was looking was already what you were looking for. The journey home ends with the recognition that you never left home. You simply forgot where you were. Behind every moment of sustained spiritual bliss lies this simple recognition. What you've been seeking has been seeking you. What you've been trying to become, you already are. What you've been trying to achieve has already been given. The kingdom of heaven isn't a place you go, it's what you are. Peace isn't a state you achieve, it's what remains when you stop fighting against what is. Love isn't something you find, it's what you discover you've always been. The revelations that flow from this level of understanding are infinite because you've tapped into the source of all revelation. You see that every spiritual teaching, every sacred text, every wise saying has been pointing you back to this one truth. You are what you seek. Divine consciousness has been playing hide and seek with itself through your human experience, and now the game is ending with the recognition of what was never actually hidden. This doesn't make your human experience less important. It makes it infinitely more precious because you understand it as the means through which the infinite experiences itself as finite, through which the eternal explores time, through which the absolute enjoys relativity. Your joys become divine celebration, your sorrows become divine compassion, your growth becomes divine expansion, your service becomes divine love in action. The transformation that occurs when you truly live from this recognition goes beyond anything that could be called personal development or spiritual achievement. You become a living demonstration that the kingdom of heaven is not only at hand, but is actually what you are. You don't talk about divine love, you embody it. You don't discuss spiritual principles, you live them so naturally that your very presence teaches them to others. Now I want to share with you what happens when this understanding becomes so integrated that you move into the final stage of conscious evolution, where you become a transparent vehicle for divine will, where your personal agenda dissolves into cosmic purpose. Write in the comments, "My entire life is living." Prayer. Here is where everything we've explored together reaches its ultimate expression, the practice of being the I am in conscious expression through every aspect of daily life. This isn't about adding more techniques to your spiritual repertoire or finding new ways to manifest. This is manifestation from unity, the natural expression of divine consciousness through human form, without any sense of effort or separation between you and what flows through you. Think about what this means in the most practical terms. When you truly embody the I am consciousness, you don't wake up each morning wondering what to manifest or what spiritual practice to do. You wake up as divine consciousness itself, ready to express whatever wants to emerge through your unique focal point of awareness. You don't think about being abundant. Abundance flows through you naturally because you know yourself as the source of all provision. You don't try to be loving. Love radiates from you effortlessly because you've recognized love as your fundamental nature. The transformation that occurs when you reach this level of integration is so complete that the very concept of manifestation becomes obsolete. You're not manifesting from unity, you are unity manifesting. There's no sense of trying to create something or attract something because you understand that everything is already present within the infinite consciousness you are. Your role becomes simply being a clear, unobstructed channel through which divine intelligence can express its perfect will. Behind this understanding lies the secret that all the great masters knew but could never fully convey in words. Enlightenment isn't about achieving some special state of consciousness. It's about recognizing that the ordinary consciousness you've always had is already divine consciousness, and then living from that recognition so completely that your entire life becomes a demonstration of divine nature in action. Consider how different your days become when you live from this space. Every decision you make is divine intelligence deciding. Every word you speak is divine consciousness communicating. Every action you take is divine will expressing. There's no separation between your individual will and divine will because you've discovered they were never separate. What you thought was your personal agenda reveals itself as cosmic purpose individualized through your unique expression. This is why Emmet Fox's teaching is So radical and transformative. He's not asking you to become something you're not. He's revealing what you already are and showing you how to live from that recognition. He's not giving you a new identity to put on. He's helping you remove the false identities that have been covering your true nature, like clouds covering the sun. The impact this has on every area of your life is profound, beyond description. Relationships become divine consciousness, relating to itself through different forms. Work becomes divine creativity expressing through productive action. Challenges become divine wisdom, revealing itself through apparent obstacles. Health becomes divine life, pulsing through physical form. Abundance becomes divine provision, flowing through material channels. Behind every moment of authentic spiritual mastery lies this simple recognition and embodiment. You don't have to learn how to be divine consciousness. You already are divine consciousness. You don't have to practice being the I am. You are the I am individualized. Your only work is to live so completely from this recognition that it becomes the natural expression of who you are in every moment. This doesn't mean you become perfect in human terms or that challenges disappear from your life. It means you meet every experience from the consciousness of your divine nature, allowing that nature to respond through you rather than reacting from old patterns of thought and emotion. You become a living example of what it means to be human and divine simultaneously, fully individual, yet completely universal. The revelations that emerge from this level of embodiment are continuous because you've become a permanent opening through which divine truth can reveal itself. You don't have to seek insights. They flow through you naturally. You don't have to work for peace. It radiates from your very being. You don't have to try to help others. Your presence itself becomes healing. Now, I want to share with you how this understanding comes full circle. How everything we've explored together culminates in a way of being that requires nothing more than what you already possess. The willingness to recognize and express the divine truth of what you are. Write in the comments, I am divine consciousness in action. You've journeyed with me through some of the most profound spiritual teachings ever given. And if you're still here, still listening, still absorbing these truths, it means something deep within. You recognizes this message as your own. You've discovered that manifestation isn't about techniques or formulas. It's about remembering who you are and living from that recognition with every breath you take. The transformation begins the moment you stop asking God for things and start expressing what you already are. It deepens when you recognize that every word you speak is creating your reality. It becomes unshakable when you understand that you and divine consciousness are not two separate things trying to connect, but one reality recognizing itself through your individual awareness. If this resonates with the truth you've always known but maybe couldn't quite put into words, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. We're creating a space where ancient wisdom meets modern understanding, where practical spirituality guides daily living, where souls like yourself gather to remember and support each other in living from divine consciousness. For those of you who've stayed with me through this entire journey, who've allowed these words to penetrate beyond the mind into the heart of your being, leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me." Let me know you're here, that you're part of this awakening community, that you're ready to live as the I am in action. And if this conversation has touched something deep within you, if it's helped you remember what you've always known, a simple like lets me know this content is serving its purpose, awakening souls to their divine nature and practical power to create their reality from consciousness. The beautiful thing about truth is that it always leads to more truth. There's a video right here that takes you even deeper into how these principles work in your daily life, showing you exactly how to integrate this understanding into practical manifestation. Click and continue with me over there, because your journey into conscious living is just beginning, and the best is yet to unfold.